manager reasonably could have concluded that the force was necessary or reasonable. So I would not challenge the finding.
Are you making a motion?
No, that's a point of discussion. And I guess two other things, maybe just because I'm talking. I appreciate that there was a debriefing, and I think that I would hope the debriefing would just include the extent of tasing that maybe the last one, maybe there could have been more of a pause. I don't know. So it happened really quickly. I feel like the speed of it cuts both ways. And the other thing that's a little separate is that I appreciate the acknowledgement from the Bureau that it was the CRC. After all of the process, it was us who caught the last tase in the log, and that hadn't even been noticed before. I appreciate that acknowledgement. It concerns me a little bit that it got to that point before anybody realized that there was an additional tasing that occurred that wasn't anywhere in the record. So I'm glad that it was acknowledged and that we are talking about it and that it's been dealt with in training. I hope that we'll continue to look that closely.
Okay, folks, it's 8:30. Do we have a motion on the floor?
Well, I move to, what would the motion be? Sustain the finding, not challenge?
To confirm the finding.
I move to confirm the finding for the reasons that stated.
I second.
Okay, starting at that end, Ms. Ford.
I disagree with the motion. I'm not in support of the motion. I think that I'm just not comfortable with the exonerated, with the debriefing, because I think that initially the entire episode, it just seems like it was just unnecessary. It was, I think that there are just so many different ways it can be handled, and it's like, yes, we're looking at it, now, and we weren't in the moment. However, there were some concerns, because I am concerned that someone had a possible mental episode, that this was not even acknowledged. That is a concern of mine. And then to account upon it with a use of the tasing, like it could have went all the way wrong. Yes, you don't know he has epilepsy, but you don't know if anyone has epilepsy. You don't know, anyone is having some sort of attack, and I feel like we have to split second judgment. And, officers have a very tough job, but we also have to consider someone whose safety who's being compromised when there's an interaction that's not going well. Someone throwing quarters out of their pocket by the bicycle, like, yes, it might be annoying, but I don't know if it rises to the level of taser. I just don't feel comfortable with that. And then the fact that you came like 40 is the last one on the ground. Whether we said the first taser was okay, that last one, it wasn't. So I don't think that it's reasonable to find that, well, that last one, I'm just going to say, I can't do more. So I just wouldn't agree.
I vote to agree with exonerated with debriefing based on the reasons that Ms. Holly gave me.
I vote for my motion based on my previous statements.
I think for me, this is one of those moments where I think it's important to highlight our standard of review, because I respect what you're saying, Ms. Ford, and I feel like it is a really tough situation in a lot of ways. I think it's an instance that definitely escalated very quickly. And I think what's hard is our standard of review is, can a reasonable person, and that reasonable person being the RU manager, come to this finding? And when I read through the policy and the directives as stated, with the evidence, I do think that he could come to a finding that this was within the Bureau's policy and procedure. If our standard of review is different, that would certainly impact my vote, but I think within this, I would need to also vote exonerated with debriefing. And again, what Ms. Donegan say in regards to adding to the debriefing?
I'm gonna vote yes, and both in the debriefing and maybe later when we talk about policy recommendations or comments. There's some other things I might add to that, but for the reasons that have already been stated, I'll say yes.
I think this was a very traumatic event for the appellant, and I think it's a traumatic event in the community. And I agree with Ms. Ford that it could have gone a lot worse. However, I do feel that we live in a world where a police officer can reasonably feel threatened in a situation, and that training takes that into account, and that it makes sense to me that that to uphold our standard here and to agree with the finding of exoneration.
I also agree with the finding of exonerated with debriefing. My concern is with the accidental discharge of taser. When someone's flailing around, I feel like the odds of that happening are going to increase. And so it might just be worthy of discussion in regards to training that if that's going to occur, that accidental discharge, that how it, circumstances on how that might occur might be a valuable discussion in training.
Well, although I agree with some of the comments that Ms. Ford has said, it's going to be a yes to confirm the findings on this allegation. And I also would like to add that there needs to be a full analysis that an accident of triggering the cases. So, and can you also please share with us so we have the full knowledge of what's going on?
Okay, so on this second allegation, 7 members of CRC voted to confirm the finding of exonerated with debriefing, and there was 1 against. So the next steps. So what I have here is that okay, so based on the vote, the committee is voting to agree with the commanding officer's findings, which were exonerated and debriefed. So I believe that closes the case.
Yes, and I would add that Mr. Rivera simply asked to hear the content of the debriefing that the Bureau had, or kind of just to have that shared out for the committee if possible. That was,
What is the plan for the debriefing?
No.
oh, sorry, I don't mean to put words in
So
your mouth.
CRC says that it's all right to accidentally discharge a weapon into someone.
Accidental deployment, accidental deployment.
Yes.
To educate us on that once they do take them back to court.
So that's a follow-up recommendation you would make?
Yes.
Okay.
So to clarify, you all have challenged allegation number 1 added the debriefing.
Yes.
So that will be presented to the chief and the word clear, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Right. So if we challenge, the challenge will be sent to the chief. If the Bureau does not accept our recommendation, then would have a conference hearing with the Bureau, and you will receive advance notice of that. If we agree at the hearing with the Bureau, then you case will be closed. So on the first one where we challenged it, that's what we're on. Okay, are there any more general comments that we wish to add as recommendations to be looked at? I mean, other members have already talked about it, but I think it's ongoing, but the use of de-escalation techniques and really being cautious before engaging or escalating a situation, I think is really important. So, that's the conclusion of the appeal. We will now have
Opportunity for us to kind of discuss. So, okay, sorry. So now there's an opportunity, and I am saying this simply because there's a statement that I think is worth making that Ms. Downing wrote to me, and I agree. So at the end of the appeal, there's kind of a discussion of what comes out of this appeal, so almost like a meta discussion on what's happening. And one of the things that Mr. Young brought up a couple of appeals ago, that also Ms. Downing just cited again, is many of these cases come down to the standard of review of which we have to reflect on and be held to. And so in the past, the committee has done a symbolic vote, if you will, in regards to what they would believe if the standard of review was different. So if it was more of a like totalness of the evidence as opposed to a reasonable person's standard of review. And so I offer that up not to say that we do one tonight per se, unless people want to, but to simply say that is an opportunity to kind of demonstrate the process and what we are kind of conveyed to have to handle within that. And so the impacts of that process on how we operate our meetings. So